Sir, if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to give true answers to the questions put before you by the court, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
How old are you, sir?
Pardon me?
How old are you?
65.
How far did you go in school?
Graduated college.
Have you ever been treated for a mental illness or condition?
No, sir.
Are you on any medication? Had any drugs or alcohol within the last 24 hours?
Blood pressure and thyroid.
Affecting your ability to understand these proceedings?
I'm sorry?
Is the medication affecting your ability to understand these proceedings?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you understand that when you plead guilty or admit to sufficient facts, you give up your right to have a trial before a judge or a jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand you give up your right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand you give up your right to question the witnesses against you as well as present evidence in your own behalf?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you understand you give up your right to remain silent, your right not to incriminate yourself?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Murray, you've explained the elements of the crime to your client?
I have, Your Honor.
So listen carefully to the prosecutor as he summarizes the facts.
Your Honor, if this matter had gone to trial, the Commonwealth would intend to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that on November 19th, 2024, approximately 6:30 p.m., Worcester police were dispatched to a fight inside City Hall at 455 Main Street. They made contact with a reporting party who had a streak of dark paint on his face. He stated that he'd been spray painted in the face by a male called Piccolo, who was identified by other witnesses on scene. Police were able to obtain video footage from the incident. They observed the defendant, who was identified as John Piccolo, the defendant before you, approach the reporting party and administer the spray paint to his face. Those are essentially the facts, Your Honor.
Did you hear those facts?
Yes, sir.
Is that what happened?
Yes, sir.
Does anybody force you to plead guilty or admit to sufficient facts?
No, sir.
Are you doing so freely and voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that if you're not a citizen of the United States, a conviction or admission to sufficient facts of this offense could have the consequences of deportation, exclusion from admission to the United States, or denial of naturalization pursuant to the laws of the United States?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you had enough time to discuss your case, your rights, your defenses, and the possible consequences of this plea with your lawyer?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand if I place you on probation, should you violate the conditions of probation or found in violation, you'll be sentenced up to 2.5 years in the House of Correction?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you still wish to plead guilty or admit to sufficient facts?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been confused by any of my questions?
No, sir.
I find your plea has been made voluntarily with full knowledge of its consequence and factual basis for it. Mr. Prosecutor, I'll hear you.
Your Honor, the victim is present, would like to address the court
Okay?
by victim impact statement.
Good morning. Please tell me your name.
Morning. My name is David Webb.
What would you like to say, sir?
I've got a statement. My name is David Webb. I've lived in Worcester my entire adult life. At 20, I opened a computer repair shop, and last year I sold it to my employees after running it for 12 years. These days, I'm a journalist and activist. I say this because people have been asking me for the past few months if I'm the spray paint guy. I'm sure that, like most abusers, they will defend their behavior by trying to say in one way or another that I deserved it, but I did not. I did not deserve it. I did not deserve to be attacked. Violence is not justified, especially in response to expression of speech. I don't care how obnoxious, annoying, or frustrating I might be. Violence is not the answer, especially for a man of such means. If he felt I said anything inaccurate or if I harmed his business, he could have taken me to court. Instead, he assaulted me. At the time, I was still trying to figure out why anyone would be stupid enough to attack me at City Hall. I hadn't yet discovered my assailant had donated to literally half the city council and was a known supporter of the police union. I think I do understand how the justice system works, actually, so once I started processing everything and figured out who he was, I realized he was at a lawyer's office drinking scotch before I was triaged at UMass. I accepted from the day after the attack that he wasn't going to serve a jail time. I don't remember the attack itself. I remember seeing a man notice me, then look more intently at me, take out an aerosol can, and I thought I was about to be pepper sprayed. I snapped my eyes shut, and then I was standing at the other side of the hallway, taking my glasses off, trying to figure out what happened, and yelled, "Get that man," and then, "Why is this the only meeting there aren't police at?" I'm fine with what the DA is proposing. The jail time is about right, and I understand it being suspended. I know I'm physically fine, and I had mental health issues before. I'm familiar with trauma, but I wasn't experiencing any PTSD symptoms until after I was publicly assaulted. I consider this state-sanctioned violence. Setting aside that it was done as a city councilor walked by, and my assailant walked by the city manager to escape, if police had been present, he would have been arrested that night for it. The police failed to protect me, even at a place they are usually at. The responding officers didn't have body-worn cameras, and I later discovered through a public records request that the police union had sent out a notice that resulted in them being docked during this time period. Despite him being identified within minutes of the attack, they did not arrest my assailant that evening. They didn't go back to his address a second time. They didn't go to his business the next day. This was turned into a summons after the city manager issued a statement saying that a warrant had been issued. The city manager's statement released the next day called it a fight and blamed the police absence on an issue an hour earlier at the front of City Hall. He said that the officers had left to file a report. However, according to public records, that report doesn't exist, and the disturbance an hour before the meeting started was closed out in minutes, according to dispatch reports. The statement also denies the practice of police presence at city council meetings, and that's simply inaccurate. I have been attending city council for about 2 years now, and there's typically 2 police officers present for the duration. I've said goodnight many evenings. They're often there before me and after. I've witnessed many shift changes during later city council meetings. When I interviewed the officers who are regularly there, they understood there to be a practice of being there, and they said to me, "You see us here every week, Dave." This past Tuesday, they showed up 10 minutes before city council started, as they usually do. The manager's statement ended by saying the following: "No individual should feel threatened or intimidated by another member of the public or by a public employee while conducting business in municipal settings. Violence and aggressive behavior of any kind toward any person inside City Hall and other public facilities is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. I am confident that the Worcester Police Department will be able to bring about justice." The Worcester Police Department has not been able to bring about justice, and violence and aggressive behavior was tolerated. As far as I can tell, by the time this statement was made at 2 p.m. on the 20th, the Worcester Police Department had already changed the warrant to a summons, and that was the last movement towards justice on their end. So I'm now concerned for my safety, and I was before, but this was along the lines of what everyone who cares about me was afraid of, and honestly, I think that's the point. To make me afraid, to get me to fall in line. At the time, my Facebook profile bio was, "Sorry, I don't have a boss you can whine to," and I think that functioned as a chip on my shoulder. People who were used to using their connections socially and professionally to get their way want to show me I can still be influenced. And it worked. I used to walk through the city every day, everywhere. I'd sometimes catch the bus, but if it was a nice day, I was out and about. I joked that it was good for my mental health, but driving through the city was bad for it. But it's true. Walking is good for my mental health. It's meditative and relaxing, and of course good exercise. And now I have to look over my shoulder and be wary. It's sort of a weird realization that this experience, while being new for me, isn't new. This is how most women and people of color in America feel. I now know that I can be attacked at any time, any place, and the police won't do anything about it. That's the main impact of this. November 19th, I was at City Hall to speak on increasing services for the unhoused community in support of a petition brought forward by a few UMass students who had recognized a need for doing more than Worcester was/is, as well as a few other agenda items. My public comment that night advocated for dual diagnosis services at centers that address both addiction and mental health. I spoke about the lack of public restrooms. I was advocating for changing the library payroll system to not require them using physical punch cards. I supported seeking a report on speed bump replacement, and I spoke on the $800,000 deficit related to Polar Park, referencing how it was an apparent lie when the Chamber of Commerce and City Administration said it would pay for itself. I was there to do what I do almost every week: advocate for improvements to the city. I'm a journalist and an activist. I start conversations. And this city, those conversations are often about political connections, interests, and who is exchanging power with who to maintain a problematic status quo. So I know that this is about power. I recognize this happened because I'm having an impact on the people that actually run the city, and they're upset that I'm doing so lawfully, so they can't actually stop me. This is about the line of when it is okay to respond to free speech with violence. I consider this about suppressing my free speech using violence, and seemingly condoned by the city and allowed by law enforcement. In the interest of maintaining allowed by law enforcement, in the interest of maintaining the problematic status quo that I have been speaking against. I am more frustrated that he is not being charged with the civil rights violation that this also was, because he interrupted my participation in democracy and waited to assault me until I was going to get in line for public comment, as I do every city council meeting. I'm unhappy that the DA isn't proceeding with a civil rights charge, even though it's just a misdemeanor, because it felt fitting. It's a law originally written to prevent KKK activity, and although it has since been significantly narrowed down over the years, this situation is entirely within the clarified scope. The police report acknowledges that he's known to them. There's no real doubt he did this. So the only real defense for a civil rights charge would be claiming that the assault was entirely retaliation, which his lawyer is likely not in any rush to do. When black and brown kids are arrested on a minor infraction, the police are known to systematically add on any applicable charges, knowing that one or two will be negotiated away in a plea deal and others will stick. Whereas at this level, it seems to be the opposite. The DA withholds additional charges that aren't as clear-cut or would be skipped in a plea deal to make the process easier and not create more paperwork for the court. Unfortunately, because proving this is politically motivated is harder than showing he assaulted me, and it would likely be forgiven in a plea deal, the DA's office is saving themselves paperwork. And I get that, but it's particularly obnoxious because on the other end of things, law enforcement overcharges small infractions. So at a base level, this is all, unfortunately, a fantastic example of how justice is not actually equal, but because it's with two affluent white guys, it's easier to discuss. The one simple question Worcester needs to ask itself to realize how ridiculous this whole thing is: what if the tables were reversed? What if I assaulted someone with a dangerous weapon during the national anthem at City Hall? The counselors this man donated to, who sat calmly in their seats while I screamed, would have been calling for my immediate prosecution to the fullest extent of the law. The plea would involve jail time, and I certainly would have been arrested. Despite how many different courtrooms I've been in, and judges I've been in front of, because I haven't donated to anyone, this situation would not be prosecuted by a different DA, and my life would be ruined, to put it mildly. I don't think my assailant has been negatively impacted at all by any of this. I'm autistic, and I have ADHD, so I'm already anxious about many things, but going places wasn't one of them. I didn't have to be cautious about people who approached me in city buildings. But now I'm wary of walking home at night, and instead I'm accepting rides from friends. I have to make sure I have running partners rather than going places alone, and I'm hesitant to post my location on social media anymore. People introduce themselves to me because they follow me on Instagram, saw me on a city live stream, or like my content on YouTube. And now instead of being excited to meet people, I'm questioning everyone's behavior and assessing every situation as potential danger. I just briefly ran for city council, and I can't pretend this was one of the top factors for why I dropped out. But I have to be concerned of every old white dude who approaches me now, and this wasn't an issue for me prior to November 19th last year. I ran a small business for over a decade. I grew it using local business networking groups and building connections one-on-one. I used to be extremely comfortable with these things, and now find uncertainty and concern at so many different levels. Someone at the bus station this past Tuesday evening said, "You're David Webb. Thanks for what you do. Someone's got to do it." And to be entirely honest, I'm not even certain which things he's referring to. But I get that a lot these days, and every time I'm apprehensive, uncomfortable, and afraid. The national anthem is now anchored to the panic of being assaulted and having to scream so people would notice. Any sense of patriotism I had left me that night. I finally found an in-person therapist, and I started therapy, and it definitely helps, but it doesn't really make any of the symptoms go away. It doesn't make me less anxious in public. It doesn't make all this additional concern less exhausting. It doesn't make me feel safe in my own city. I'm not new to receiving hate. As I said, I'm autistic. I've been bullied for most of my life for reasons I didn't really understand until a few years ago. And because I'm loud on social media, I've received threats, but now it's different. Now it's entitled because of the precedent that my assailant set. I've been wondering why he did this since it happened. It could have been to incapacitate me before attacking me further. It could have been trying to permanently disable me. He could have blinded me. Some people suggested that maybe he was trying to make me go blackface before my public comment. The whole thing appeared to be extremely premeditated. He showed up with an accomplice and prepared spray paint can for easy access as he entered the city building. So I came to the conclusion that he did this simply because he could. He did this because he knows that in today's society, with enough privilege, you can do harmful things without being impacted by it. And frankly, he's right. A felony charge doesn't affect a small business owner or landlord, and if he behaves for a few years, he could do this again and get another delayed sentence, especially if he's even older. Locally, this attack was the first police-sanctioned violence after Trump's election. Regardless of what can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, it was clearly politically motivated between the timing, location, and affiliations. My assailant has donated to half the Worcester City Council, the Worcester District Attorney, and runs a business association that participation in is necessary for survival on Shrewsbury Street. I understand that even in this city, even if people in the city don't have a financial, personal, or professional relationship with people, Their lives and careers can be impacted based on their relationship with other people, and I'm extremely wary of the amount of discretion available to the court in these situations, given how clear the documented facts are. The fact that no one was arrested for it, even though everyone knew who it was, already establishes for the general public that if you know the right people and you have enough money, you can get away with a crime. So this is a crime about class, about a level of people that know they can commit a felony and get away with it without spending a night in jail, without ever being arrested, and without it actually negatively impacting their life. I came to the conclusion that this is simple. He did this because he knows he can get away with this, because he knows that in this day and age, violence is acceptable if enough people support it and you can afford the legal defense. The court failed to protect me when I filed a harassment prevention order because there was only one instance of assault. I understand that's the legal basis for a harassment prevention order, but it still sounds really silly when I say it out loud. The law is supposed to be about right and wrong and preventing harm, and this person tried to hurt me and will likely not suffer any repercussions. Whether it was a coincidence or his good fortune that this was the only city council that police weren't at, he managed to avoid being arrested, and to be honest, I've sort of given up on actual justice here. That's the impact. I've lost even more faith in justice. I have PTSD for who knows how long, and the baseline for political violence in Worcester was stepped up a few notches. I have no real reason to think that he wouldn't do this again, or that other people won't if all he gets is a slap on the wrist. He victimized me publicly, and while I understand that someone without an otherwise documented past criminal history isn't likely to get jail time, the court must send a message to the general public that this isn't okay on any level. Potentially losing my vision forever, having to deal with PTSD, being concerned about everyone who walks up to me, and he gets a year and a half to 2.5 years of jail time maybe. Worse, the social discussions he started of people saying I deserve it, and it's caused me to receive more specific threats and hate. As a specific example, last weekend, someone I accused of transphobia in a group on Facebook called Worcester Political Dialogue said to me, "I'm going to show you how real it can get. I tried to tell you some people are not on the same type of time as Piccolo. It's me, I'm some people. I don't do social media back and forth. I thought you would have learned your lesson on poking bears when the old man spray painted you. I guess not." A separate instance, I was documenting an open meeting law violation by the WRTA, and someone who was walking by me recording said, "You deserved what happened to you at City Hall." Another notable instance is a political candidate from the last election posted, "Piccolo is a legend," a few days after I was assaulted, and there were a lot of people heart reacting it. People think that he was teaching me a lesson, so I don't think there's any remorse. Furthermore, at the first hearing, someone with him threatened my partner in the courthouse, so I don't really have any reason to think he believes what he did was wrong. The DA has to care about his motive, about why he assaulted me, and also has to prove everything beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't care if he was angry. I don't care if he was drunk. I don't care if this is because he's racist, because I hurt his reputation calling an event out, or it's because he lost sales over it. I am now concerned for my safety and acutely aware that this is likely the purpose of his actions. His intention doesn't matter, though. This is about his impact. And while this is my impact statement, the impact isn't just to me. I'm not the only one hurt. Because the police weren't there, a civilian had to intervene and attempt to delay him from escaping. My friend, an indigenous activist grandmother, delayed his escape long enough for people to exit this council chamber and identify him because the Worcester Police Department wasn't there to do its job. Wahaya said at her clerk hearing that she used nonviolent techniques she learned when working with mentally ill children, and if police were there like they always were, she wouldn't have had to intervene. That was sufficient for the possibility of a crime being committed, so now she is being charged with assault, and she can't afford the brother of the Chamber of Commerce to protect her from the law, and her public defender wants no part of this quote-unquote three-ring circus. But I need to thank Wahaya and Councillor King. We possibly wouldn't be here without them, if the events of that evening had gone differently. I cannot say I have faith in the Worcester Police Department to have gone through that footage, seen him hug the chair of the safety committee 8 minutes before assaulting me, and done much further. This court has the opportunity to implement the closest thing to justice this situation will see, and it's important to Worcester and society that it does. The moral of this story needs to be that violence is wrong, that people cannot assault others in Worcester and at City Hall, no matter how well connected you are, no matter how obnoxious a member of the public is. When people run into me and ask what happened with the situation, I want to be able to tell them I got justice, that he was charged with the felonies for his crimes. If it's continued without a finding, that means people really can commit violent political crimes and get away with it. If it's continued without a finding, that means that I could have been blinded for life, have a whole new list of mental health symptoms to talk to a therapist about for the next few years, feel unsafe in public, and he gets an expensive lawyer bill. That's not justice. This court must send a message that violence isn't okay, even if you can afford the legal defense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, just briefly, the Commonwealth is recommending 1 year House of Correction, suspended for 18 months with a stay away from Mr. Webb and anger management. This was not a fight where emotions and tempers were flaring and the defendant took things too far. This was a premeditated ambush on an unsuspecting victim. And that's clear from the video, which I do have if Your Honor would like to see it. But basically what happened was the defendant didn't like a post that Mr. Webb had made on Facebook, decided to go out, got spray paint can, went to City Hall with an associate of his or someone he knew was clearly with him. There's video in the garage where he's putting on his jacket and he clearly makes this spray paint accessible to him in his coat. He goes up to City Hall. He's in the hallway for a period of time. He's looking around the corner at Mr. Webb and he's waiting for an opportunity to attack. After waiting for a significant period of time, he approaches Mr. Webb and he attacks him, who's completely unsuspecting that this is about to occur. And again, all because of a post on Facebook that he was upset about. There's no justification for this conduct, and his inability to resolve conflict here, his inability to regulate his anger and to do something so calculated after having time to think about it. The Commonwealth has serious concerns moving forward about his ability to handle conflicts, even in light of his limited criminal record here. I don't believe he has a conviction in the last 30 years. But even in light of that, his conduct here is so egregious, and the clear impact it's had on Mr. Webb is so clear. The Commonwealth is requesting that the court adopt its recommendation. Continuance without a finding it's not appropriate in a case with this kind of conduct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. I would just like to state from the outset that my client is here tendering this plea and taking responsibility for his actions because he realizes that his response to Mr. Webb's wildly inappropriate, intentionally provocative Facebook post was wrong and legally not defensible. But I do think it is important for the court to have some awareness of the context in which this all happened and to know a little bit about my client himself. He's 65 years of age. He's a father of 2 children, born in Haverhill, graduated Haverhill High School. After that, paid his way through culinary school at Johnson & Wales. He's a recent cancer survivor, suffers severe arthritis in his legs from toiling over about 50 years in the restaurant industry. He moved to Worcester in 1984, working in restaurants all across town, working 80, 90 hours a week before achieving a lifelong dream of opening up his own restaurant on Shrewsbury Street in 2004. Since that time, Mr. Piccolo has poured his life, his heart, his soul, his treasure into that restaurant, working 80, 90 hours a week to try to build a brand, a reputation that could survive all of the challenges that go into running a restaurant, all while employing hundreds of people during that span of time. People from all walks of life, people from the immigrant community looking to stake a foothold here in Worcester, people whose livelihood depended upon the success of that restaurant. And he has been successful in doing so. And so it is in that context, Your Honor, that my client, who has never met Mr. Webb, who had never met Mr. Webb in his life, never had a conversation with him, never knowingly was in his presence, he was absolutely blindsided and ambushed by a Facebook post that Mr. Webb posted indicating that my client's restaurant, with his name on it, was hosting a racist convention at his restaurant. And what we've learned is, respectfully, is that this is a course of conduct of Mr. Webb. And again, this is not a legal defense, but these are the facts that, from our perspective, of publicly trolling on Facebook people that he doesn't know, he's never met, making outrageous accusations and claims. And what he did to my client was just a continuation of that. Calling someone a racist is probably one of the worst things one can say about another person, and suggesting that they're hosting a racist convention. And that's what Mr. Webb did, again, having never met my client before. And so, unfortunately, the emotion of that resonated very deeply with my client, and he took the bait and responded to this situation in a way that we all know he should not have. I can tell you his concern was his livelihood. His concern was the people that work for him and their livelihood. And he is accepting responsibility and acknowledges that the way he responded was inappropriate. This is a good, decent, and charitable person who's contributed to this community for many years. He's the president of the Shrewsbury Merchant Association. He's volunteered. He was a past president of the Worcester Lions Club, which is a group focusing on raising money for the blind. Active member of the 200 Foundation, which is a Metro West charity designed to assist primarily women and children issues. He's given a lot to this community, Your Honor, in one way or another. And his actions on this particular day were nothing more than a response to that Facebook post. He's taking responsibility here, Your Honor. We're respectfully asking that you continue the case without a finding for 1 year, that he stay away and have no contact with Mr. Webb, and that in lieu of anger management counselor, or in place of that, that he continue with the counseling that he's currently engaged in right now. Since this incident, he actively began counseling with a crisis management counselor, Father Slavinskas, up at St. Bernard's. He's attended 8 sessions so far. This is intensive one-on-one counseling rather than kind of a generic group counseling or group sessions in an anger management program. We think that would be far more effective in kind of dealing with some of the underlying issues that are involved here, Judge. And so we think that's appropriate. We'd also ask, and I don't think there's any objection, that the travel restriction be waived. Given my client's arthritis, he does travel to warmer climate during the winter months to deal with that issue.
Thank you. I'm going to require that he does an anger management program. The matter will be continued without a fine for a period of 1 year. To stay at least 50 yards away from Mr. Webb, have no contact with him directly or indirectly. After complete the anger management program, he can continue with his current counseling. And there's no travel restriction. Is he willing to accept that?
Yes, he is.
We'll stay with supervised.
For the 1 year date, you have April 14th.
So he's going to be.
And for the record, the 1 year date is April 14th, 2026.
You need to sign that.
If he goes down to probation, he can sign the conditions.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to take a recess.
Court will be in the morning recess.
All right, folks, step outside and come back in about 30 minutes.